multiplying and dividing algebraic terms. Okay, so we're going to multiply our algebraic terms together. The first thing we do is we multiply the numbers. Then we add in our pronumerals, so add the letters. We do this by removing the times sign and just placing them after the number. So the first one, minus 3 times 4x. So we're going to times the minus 3 and the 4 together to get a negative 12. Now, if you need to use the calculator, then do so by all means, or you can do it in your head and check with the calculator. We then simply put the x on the end. Okay, B, 5x times 2y. We times the 5 and the 2 together to get 10, and we put the x and the y on the end. With this question, we've got a minus x here. That's the same as minus 1x. Don't get confused with the brackets. It's just been put there so that you know that it's a negative x squared. It can also be written without the brackets. So we're going to times the 2 by the minus 1, which gives us minus 2. And then we're going to times x times x squared. Now there's another invisible one there. Any single pronumeral is to the power of 1. So remembering we add our indices. Okay, this is like x times x times x, which is x to the 3. With this next question D, this whole thing is going to be squared. So we're going to rewrite the question out, but we're going to square that and then we'll times together. So we've got 4x times. Now minus 2 squared is the same as minus 2 times minus 2. That's going to give us a positive number. It's going to give us positive 4x squared because we square the x as well. So now we're going to times minus 4 times 4 gives us minus 16. And x times x squared gives us x to the 3. Okay, we're just adding our indices. Remember that one is invisible. Okay, so 2m squared times 3n squared. 2 times 3 is 6. M squared, write that down, n squared. We can't make that to the power of 4 because the m and the n are different bases. So we just write each of those down with the squares above each of them. Okay, minus 5x squared. So the whole thing here is going to be squared. So minus 5 times minus 5 is 25. And x squared is x squared. Okay, we're going to move on to divide next. Now remember, a fraction bar works as a divide. So these are done best if we put them as fractions. So instead of putting the divide here, we're going to put it as a fraction. So we're going to go 10x over 5. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to cancel down. Okay, so we say what goes into 10 that also goes into 5, and 5 goes into both. So you say, how many times does 5 go into 10? It goes twice. How many times does 5 go into 5? It goes once. So now we just rewrite that out as 2x over 1. Now we have an invisible one here as well because we don't need to write it. So we just write that out as 2x because all numbers over 1 can just be written out as themselves. Okay, the next one. We have 20pq over 4p. So we're going to cancel down. We say what goes into 20 that goes into 4? Well, 4 goes into both 20 and 4. So how many times does 4 go into 20? It goes 5 times. How many times does 4 go into 4? It goes once. We can also cancel our pronumerals down. We have a p on the top and a p on the bottom. So we can say p goes into p once and p goes into p once. Now we times it out, okay, to simplify. So we have 5 times 1 times q. 5 times 1 is 5, gives us 5q. 5q, and 1 times 1 gives us 1, and remember our invisible 0 leaves us with 5q. You'll get used to not writing that step down once you've had a bit of practice. Okay, and the next one, minus 14a over 12a squared. Now 12a squared is the same as minus 14a over 12a, because a times a gives us a squared, and that might give you a little bit more practice doing this and make it a little bit easier if we write it out like that. Okay, now we need to see what is the highest common factor for HCF. So that means the number that goes into both 14 and 12, but we want the highest number, and the highest common factor of those two is 2. So we say to ourselves, how many times does 2 go into 14? Well, it goes 7 times. So we have to remember it's minus 7 because that's a minus 14. And how many times does 2 go into 12? It goes 6 times. Now, we've got an A on the top we can cross out, and an A on the bottom that we can also cross out. Okay. So minus 7 is on the top, and 6 times A gives us 6A. Okay, so in summary, when we're multiplying, we want to multiply the numbers first. Don't forget the negatives as well. If you need to use your calculator, then by all means do that, particularly in a test. Then we multiply the pronumerals together by joining them. We remove the timeses in between and we just put it on the end of our number. If you've got an A, for example, times an A, it becomes an A squared. Okay, and that way you'll get it right. Dividing, make it a fraction first. Then simplify the number by finding out the highest common factor of the top and the bottom number. You then cancel the pronumerals. So if you've got one A on the top and one on the bottom, you can cross them out. Then you can just simply multiply across and you should have your answer.